Sorry about that. I think we are connected now. Sam should be joining us shortly. Let me see with her. Let me know if you have trouble getting in. Oop, here she comes. Hi, Sam. Sorry about that.
You're good. Every time I try a new technology, I'm reminded that I'm not young anymore.
I know, right? I don't know. I don't know what to say. I tried on both devices.
It's just like it didn't want us. They're trying to silence us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you to everybody hanging out with us this happy Halloween.
Oops. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. No, I just heard an echo of myself, and I'm like, where is this coming from? But it's gone now, so I
Okay,
feel a
good,
lot
good,
better.
good.
Not in my head.
Well,
It could be. After this week, it could be.
it could be. It could be. Well, I thought it would be cool to get started with talking about the Preguntle project on the Spanish side of Yale Climate Connections.
Yeah.
We haven't done like a Q&A kind of thing like this in English yet, but it's been pretty successful on the Spanish side. So what have you been working on? What have you been learning?
Well, before we go into that,
Great.
Sam, I just want everyone to know I was inspired by your graphic for this event, and I wanted to make barrettes with bats on them, and I was unsuccessful in this venture. So I do have the bats here, but they are
Great.
not on my head.
I love them.
I did try. I did try for you, okay?
I believe.
Alas, it was unsuccessful. So I am just embodying glitter and
Perfect. Love.
going with that. Yeah, so Pregúntale al Experto, we started that project, what, 2 years ago now, I think, or in a
Yeah.
one or the other. And so we started it as a project to see if engagement journalism would work in Spanish. And we had a lot of success with our extreme weather coverage, and had gained a great audience through that. So yeah, we launched that. Yeah, I guess it must have been April. Yeah, it's not even 2 years. April 2024. Um, and we started to get questions slowly. I mean, we were worried that we wouldn't get that many questions. So we basically just asked people to send in their questions about climate change through a form on our website. And then they started to come in fast and furious during hurricane season, because it was an extremely active hurricane season. And so we were just getting more eyeballs on our website in Spanish. And yeah, I think we got 100 plus questions. And the original format had been that we were going to answer these questions as articles with our team of experts. So we have a team of contributors that were going to help us answering those questions. Anyways, long story short, we could answer only so many questions through written format. So this year we decided that we were going to do videos. And so we've been answering those questions in short video format. And yeah, I mean, it's been going well. I mean, it has been a very different hurricane season this year. So that has kind of dictated the flow of the questions coming in. But yeah, I mean, I think it's been working. And the fun thing is you and I have been working in tandem in these new platforms. So it's been very much an experimental year. in that way, which has been great, but also just like pulling us in so many different directions.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, obviously with Hurricane Melissa this past week, we got some additional questions coming in about that hurricane
Mm.
specifically, and we were able to answer those a lot faster because with utilizing video. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to play around, and we're just lucky to be in an environment where we can experiment, and we're privileged enough to still have jobs.
Amen.
and yeah, and it's been largely, I mean, it depends what your parameters are for success, but I think we're doing some decent work.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, like to have this sort of regular check-in with readers or viewers, listeners, whatever they form they may take of just kind of like where people are at. Because I think when you are a journalist that is often spending time like in a really specific beat, like climate change, we're thinking about climate change all the time. We're reading a lot of, you know, scientific research. And I think it's important to like, I don't know, to make sure you are sort of like checking in with the audience, be like, what is important to you? What are you curious about? How can we use our resources and our time to get you answers to the questions that you have? And I think, yeah, I think it was maybe a little bit surprising in the beginning of the Preguntale al Esperto project how a lot of the questions were some of the, I don't know, the things that we maybe like assumed the audience wasn't wondering.
Right.
And yeah, I wonder if you have thoughts on that or if you've seen the kind of like tone of the questions change over the last, year and a half plus.
I mean, it's been interesting because we've gotten a lot of questions, more than I would like, right? About, is climate change real and is it human related? And those questions still trickle in. That hasn't changed so much, but I mean, we've gotten such a great variety of questions from the get go. We've gotten very in-depth questions about things that, I'm glad that we have other experts on these subject matters, because I don't know, like, how the rotation of the earth affects the climate and all that stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, and then, obviously the extreme weather questions. I mean, I would definitely say that is predominantly, the catalyst for questions coming in, is like, is this going to affect the country I live in or the town that I live in? So, which I mean, I think thanks to the research of the Yale program, the YPCCC, so the Yale program for climate change communication, which we're part of, we knew that extreme weather was a worry for the Latino populations, both in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. But we do also know that, in some countries, making that connection between extreme weather and human-driven climate change is not always there. So having that data already was great in going into this project, and kind of like having an idea of what kind of questions we might get. So, I mean, they haven't really, yeah. I mean, it depends on the regions too. Like, we get from all over, and sometimes they're super specific to the point like we don't even have an expert to really answer that. But I mean, and then like last year, for example, they had that huge flood, which actually they just had the anniversary of, in Valencia, and we were getting questions about that, and so we started to pick up readership in Spain, which was cool. And um, yeah, so really it kind of feels like, yeah, the catalyst is extreme weather event, and then depending on where that weather is and might potentially affect, we start to get questions specific to those geographical regions.
Didn't someone last year ask like, I don't know, they were like, my wedding is in a few months. What's the weather going to be like?
Oh yes,
I was
that
like
one we could
obsessed.
that one we could not answer. Wasn't too sure about that one. I hope the wedding went well.
Me too.
But, yeah, so we get very specific questions and then very general ones too. Yeah, and it kinda sucks, like, when you get these questions, or, we got a statement, like, last week that climate change is not like, scientists aren't in agreement that
Mm.
climate change is happening because of human activity, and it's yeah, I mean, that those questions kinda, like, make you feel like, "Oh, man, like, we have a lot of work to do still." But, I'm just glad that we can be here in this space and answer those questions and provide evidence, and facts, about, what we're talking about, and that, yes, it is in fact real, and the overwhelming majority of scientists do, know that climate change is being caused by human activity.
Yeah, I think the scientific consensus is, like, up to 99% now or
Yeah, and then the
um,
other ones work for a gas and oil company now.
totally.
Allegedly.
Or they're, retired going on Joe Rogan's podcast. Um Anyway, but I think that this sort of direction of this conversation leads really well into the first question that we got submitted for this Q&A, which came in from Damien on Instagram, who asked, "How can we get American media to talk about climate change more?" I don't know if you want to like kick us off, Pearl, but I think extreme weather is definitely a good tie.
Yeah, I mean, I always get such mixed information about this because you'll see these disappointing reports that climate change, being mentioned in news, has declined in recent years. Um, but then for example, I was having a conversation with our partners at Climate Central yesterday, and they've been overwhelmed with interview requests this past week to really and this organization, Climate Central, has all this data that can showcase the links between the rapid acceleration of Hurricane Melissa and global warming caused by humans. So it's nice. It's it's not comforting, but it is good to know that those connections were really being made very strongly the past week, in the major news organizations. Yeah, it is. I think part of the problem. Well, I mean, there's the politicization of climate change, and there we know of many meteorologists who've mentioned climate change during their reports and have received death threats because of that. Even I think being fired at times. So there's obviously like that fear, but also just breaking down the science in a simplistic way. How can you do that without like losing people's attention? And I think, for many years it was told in such an abstract way.
Mhm.
Um, like talking about, the polar ice caps melting and polar bears dying. All of that is very sad, but that all seems very far away.
Totally.
And I think one thing that we have all tried to do is really bring the stories to the backyards of everybody, and that's not hard to do because it's happening in pretty much everybody's backyard. And then, yeah, having these partnerships with organizations like Climate Central that can really just break down that connection so easily, a lot of times in like a beautiful graphic,
Mhm.
has been really, really great. I mean, obviously, I think we've used Climate Central's data. Our meteorologist Bob and Jeff have used it in pretty much every article they've written this week, I think.
Mhm.
And that showcasing that the water was between 800 and 900 times warmer,
Mhm.
or likely, that I always get tripped up on this one. The temperature was made more 800 times more likely because of human caused climate change. And then they also have the increase in wind power, and the hurricane and everything. So having that accessibility and that attribution science there, um, is really helpful. And I think what happens is people get a little scared
Totally.
in trying to report on that stuff. And sometimes aren't knowledgeable enough to know that they're not saying that they're not knowledgeable enough, but might not be aware of the resources that are out there that help communicate the science in an accurate and effective way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like at a local level, like I don't know, there's so few local journalists now, and everybody is overworked and overwhelmed. But also covering climate now has a lot of resources. So like regardless of a journalist beat, like even if you're covering high school sports, right? Like there's a climate connection there. Because I don't know, high school football players playing in extreme heat are experiencing a lot of health impacts.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think like the more that we can help people connect to these resources that like, yeah, make it really timely and topical, the kind of like breaking news of a storm or a heat wave, and how to bring that into reporting like easily, I think the more coverage we'll see. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're also up against the like politicization of climate change and increasingly news organizations being bought by right leaning or fossil fuel connected interests. So
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, just we have a lot stacked against us. But I think also sometimes people think that these stories might be boring,
mhm.
and forget that there are just so many ways, so many powerful storytelling techniques, and just so many powerful stories out there that you can link it that can be linked to climate change. Yeah, I just and it, one thing that we've also been talking about is it doesn't exist in a silo.
Totally.
Like, we're always talking about immigration, we're talking about health, we're talking about economy, like all the time. It doesn't it affects everything, so you can be an immigration reporter, or economics reporter, and still be covering climate.
Mhm.
And yeah, so like there are so many stories out there. There's plenty of stories still to be told. And I think another thing is there's so many positive stories to be told. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, well, it's just like everyone has enough bad news going on. They don't want like that fatigue. But there are so many great stories about communities being empowered and making a difference, and individuals making a difference. And um, you know, I think sometimes the bigger news organizations fall into the trap of just talking about victimhood and climate change, and it feels like a trope, and there's way better ways of telling it.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you have a favorite solution story that you have heard or read or edited recently?
Thanks, Sam, for putting me on the
Or
spot.
maybe
That is
I could be like, tell I actually like would love to hear more about, solar in Puerto Rico.
tough. um, yeah, well, I didn't do a story recently about that. You're the one that has been like knocking it out of the park in terms of stories. I've just been like
You got a lot going
editing and stuff. But I did recently do a webinar with Eco Madres, which is part of Mom Clean Air Force. Um, and we were talking about hurricanes and the effect that they have in Puerto Rico and Florida, and how solar can be utilized better, and as a way to get climate justice. So making sure that there's the equal playing field when it comes to these solutions. So yeah, I mean, but I could really only speak to my personal experience there, and my personal experience of growing up in the Caribbean, and having lived and been in other islands. um, I think, yeah, the solar it has to be part of the solution.
Mm.
I mean, importing fossil fuels all the time is just something that's not going to be sustainable. And having a larger grid system, it inevitably, on whatever island you are on, it is going to be knocked out. I mean, I think we're experiencing that right now in Jamaica, and in Cuba, and parts of Haiti and Dominican Republic. They obviously, the power went out, and serious infrastructure issues. So it has been beautiful. And I know everyone thinks I'm so, like, just romanticizing the situation, but it has been wonderful to see many parts of Puerto Rico start to adapt to having microgrids and community solar, and just having that energy independence, because the energy grid there is so decimated. So it had to really come from the people and the communities to make life actually sustainable. So many people died after Hurricane Maria because of not having access to power. I don't quote me on this, but I think the majority of the deaths occur. Yeah, absolutely, a majority of the deaths occurred after the
Mhm.
hurricane. Not having access to dialysis
Mm.
or refrigeration. So it's just been really cool to see that kind of energy. I mean, I don't know if it's a revolution as of yet, but like, it's definitely starting. And I think it's a great example of what could be adapted to the rest of the islands, and potentially here in the US too. It hasn't really, from my knowledge, kicked off in a lot of the other islands.
Mm.
I mean, you obviously need to, solar panels are expensive, batteries are expensive. So having the way to finance those systems is sometimes not easy. And Puerto Rico, for the moment, has access to ways to do that. Not everybody does, but some people do. So yeah, it's that's been like really cool and inspiring to see, and seeing stories about that. We've written before, not myself, but about Casa Pueblo, which is in the middle of the island, that has built like a solar system there, and continues to install solar on people's houses. And it was one of the only places that had power after Fiona. So yeah, that's been really cool to see. And I think that this transition will have to come from communities and come from people, because governments have been a little slow
Yeah.
on these. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder too what we'll see. Obviously, a horrible, disastrous situation like continuing to unfold in Jamaica and Cuba and Haiti. But it'll be interesting to see if solar becomes part of that rebuilding process too.
Yeah, yeah, it will be really interesting to see, and also just like ways to recover from extreme weather disasters. I know in Jamaica, one article that I do want to write but don't have enough information on right now, and that's why I want to write it, is that Jamaica had a bond system,
Mm.
so that it triggered a certain amount of damage. They would have to, that money would then go into rebuilding the infrastructure in Jamaica. And they did obviously trigger that with Melissa. They didn't trigger it with Beryl last year. But,
Mm.
just looking at these different adaptation methods, because, relying on external relief is obviously not possible now, for many. I think, losing USAID this year has really been a huge wake up call, that, the building, the infrastructure we have to get creative in other ways.
Yeah. Well, wishing everybody the best in an impossible situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. Um, well, the next question on our list came from our colleague Joshua, and he asked, "How is climate change impacting the price of chocolate?" Um, and I know, I mean, I can set the stage a little bit, and then again, we're going to talk about Puerto Rico because Pearl knows all the cool stuff going on in Puerto Rico. But yeah, cacao doesn't really, the optimal temperature is warm and hot but below 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and then also it doesn't love drought, but also doesn't love floods, and in a lot of cacao producing regions, extreme temperatures or extreme fluctuations in precipitation are causing like harvest shortages, which means price of chocolate's going up. There was an interesting article in the Atlantic, I don't know, a couple weeks ago about how a lot of the like trendy new Halloween candy this year like doesn't have chocolate in it. Like the Kit Kat is covered in something else. So I think we are seeing like high chocolate prices and high I don't know, shortages is the word that I'm
Mhm.
looking for, not high. And yeah, I know that you have some knowledge about what is going on
I like
as
chocolate.
yeah. As especially like not it's also not just chocolate, it's also coffee, right? But there's like some agricultural movements in Puerto Rico to start growing more cacao and more coffee.
Yeah, that's been another really interesting movement in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, and um, again, I need to write a story about this. Like this happened. But yeah, well, yeah. So first off, I think the majority of our chocolate comes from West Africa, which has
Yeah.
suffered extreme drought in the past couple years, and that has led to, yeah, I mean, pretty much all the like candy you see in the store as you're checking out is now no longer has chocolate in it. It's like they've had to take those words off the wrapper. So yeah, that's pretty interesting and scary. But yeah, so cacao was never really it wasn't the biggest crop in Puerto Rico. Sugar was, and that was all owned. I mean, it was owned by the Spanish, and then the Americans invaded and took over Puerto Rico, and then those companies, the big sugar companies that owned most of the land there. So sugar was the main crop down there. But in recent years, there's been a big resurgence in cacao, and growing that in Puerto Rico, and trying to find um, more resilient strains of cacao that will grow in more extreme
Mm.
temperatures. And yeah, I mean, also another thing that we have to think about is the tariffs and bringing um, for chocolate. I mean, yeah, we don't have to worry about the tariffs from Puerto Rico to the mainland U.S., but things are increasing in price anyways. Because I know one cacao grower I spoke to in Puerto Rico, he would get a lot of his packaging for his chocolate from the U.S. At first, but that was super expensive, and then eventually started to get it from China, and then obviously in the first administration that became very difficult to do, and it really affected his business. Um, so yeah, and then with coffee, majority of our coffee comes from Brazil,
Mm.
and a lot of people, or some of you might know, that we have a little trade war going on with Brazil. And then Colombia, and we're also having a
Mm.
little bit of a spat with with Colombia. So yeah, coffee is definitely, well, but also there's been droughts in Brazil since 2020 that have been really really bad. So, and there's been flooding too, but I don't know if that's in the same region. So, anyways, the combination of those two things has affected both chocolate and coffee. So, and we also have a great video on our YouTube channel about how climate change is increasing the cost of chocolate. I think we did coffee, apples, something else. But yeah, it was really good. We did that last year. It's
Yeah.
one of our more popular videos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that people aren't necessarily realizing that like climate change is already affecting the prices of food on your grocery shelves. Like this isn't something that's happening in the distant future. It's happening now. And Dana, I'm sorry, chocolate chips are more expensive.
I know. I was just responding to him. That's. That's not right. No. Yeah, no, it's really affecting things. And I think, that unfortunately what happens sometimes is like, we were talking about covering climate change earlier.
Mm,
The sexier thing to talk about at the moment is the tariffs as
right.
opposed to like the climate change. So the climate change, whatever, sure.
Many
So yeah,
climate changes.
so just like the complexity of these stories sometimes get lost, and like the thing that is more like clickbaity is going to be in the headline, right? But I have been it's been nice to see that in the past week. Again, not happy about it, but it's been good to see
Yeah.
that climate change has been in the headlines
Yeah.
about Hurricane Maria. And you don't normally get that. You normally get maybe a mention about climate change like three paragraphs down, or one of the last paragraph. And a lot of times people have already moved on to the next story. So, um, yeah, so yes, chocolate, coffee, a lot of other things affected by climate change.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to your point, I also I think I saw like an AP headline and a CNN headline before Melissa, which is just like for some reason Melissa's a wild name for a hurricane to me. It's like, I don't know. It's
I
the
have a friend
lady
called
down the
Melissa.
street.
Yeah, I have a friend called Melissa, and I'm like, "Why? Why did you do this?
Melissa.
You're not very
Uh,
nice."
uh but but yeah, I think you know, there's some sort of threshold has been crossed where these major news organizations are saying, okay, like the science is clear enough, it's available enough to me that this is like important to put right up top. And yeah, I'd like to see it happen more, across the board because we know that climate change is affecting everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, but yeah, there's just a huge hesitancy to talk about climate change right now. I mean, earlier in the year, there was talk about making organizations that talk about climate change be labeled terrorist organizations. So I think, yeah, there's just this fear around speaking about it, like more heightened, more so than it was even before, which is very sad. But we're going to continue to do that until we get thrown in jail. So
Hopefully not. But
hopefully.
yeah, I mean, and also just sort of I don't know, CBS News fired all their climate reporters today,
Yeah.
I think. So it's like, yeah, the kind of the pressure, like the quiet pressure, at a time when we need more people doing this work. We need more outlets covering this. We need more reporters on it. And it's a shame. It's also just I don't know, I think that I know that you feel this because there's not a lot of good climate. I mean, there is some, but there's just not enough resources in Spanish. And then it just puts extra pressure on, you too, to be like, I am one of the only sources of news for a very vulnerable community. Not the best.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just naturally a person that puts a lot of pressure on myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's both, like it's both feelings, because it was really cool to see how like the different places around the Caribbean were looking at our extreme weather reporting the past week. We all of a sudden got like 8,000 viewers from Cuba, and I'm like, I don't know. I do like it's like I take pride in the fact that
Totally.
that's happening, but I also just, yeah, it is sad that there aren't more resources out there. Um, and yeah, making that connection. So I mean, like for example, we know in the Dominican Republic that that connection between climate change driven by human activity and extreme weather it's so low. I don't know the percentage right now, but I think it's below like 20%.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, but we are partnering with some news organizations in the Dominican Republic to provide more content and to partner with them. So yeah, it's both sad but also like really just great to there are so many news organizations that
Totally.
want to partner with us and want to have that coverage. They just don't maybe have the resources to do it
Totally.
or the platform to do it. And just to have that willingness is really, it just keeps me going in a way, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah, and there's so many like, the more that you spend time in this space, the more that you realize just how many people are doing such, like, good and important work, and that's really, like, I don't know, inspiring. It's
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one point that I'd like to bring up is like, that there is disinformation out there. There is a lot of misinformation out there, but those bad actors are a minority.
yep,
It's a super small group of people, um, but they're so loud that you think that
yeah,
they're in the majority. So yeah, like when you are interacting with people, you realize, oh well, like the majority of people actually do believe in climate change. They do
mhm,
believe that it's human caused. So I don't know what my point was there, but it's just nice to know that like
yeah,
you sometimes feel like it's you're just pushing this stone, this rock up a hill, but there are a lot, we are in the majority. Just people
100%.
are quiet.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, like, reiterate that point that, like, the minority is loud, but they are small. And like I think, we see a lot of sort of like protests or like people showing up at city council or like rural community meetings to try and shut down renewable energy projects in the Midwest. And it's a very small number of people. Sometimes it's the same group of people going to like all of the little towns in the area. And so then I think it's just like it's helpful to say that because then it's like we actually don't need, it's not like we need a million people
Right.
to sort of like oppose this movement. It's just like we just need we need a few people to pay attention and to like spend time and resources, which not everyone can do. But like yeah, just showing up locally, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there, especially right now, there's just a lot of fatigue. So
Totally.
like trying to, yeah, to encourage people to still be in the fight and still have hope. That seems like the number one priority right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like I don't know, I find myself too like my attention is pulled in so many
Mm.
directions. And I think it can be helpful to have the knowledge in the background that like all of these things that are happening that matter that I care about are also like there's a climate angle to them too. And I think it's just like yeah, the more that you pull on threads, the more connected all of these systems are and the more we like can build better ways of care, better communities, better et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, which feels like a good segue into a question that was a little bit we had gone back and forth about answering.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind,
Don't do it.
um, so someone had asked us about Bill Gates' proposal to shift focus and funding away from climate change mitigation. It strikes me as so frustrating to finally see human suffering centered as the main problem, all while throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So, yeah, basically, he said we need to focus on improving people's lives through vaccination and healthcare. I believe. I did read the article a couple days ago, but a lot has happened since then. Um, and not focus a lot on climate change because yes, it's an important issue, but it's not that important. And like to your point of what you were just saying is like it is involved in every aspect of people's lives, especially health. And it needs to put these things in their different like their own or their different arenas and not see the intersection of all of them is extremely frustrating and extremely just short-sighted. um and again, I mean, I think this is just like pandering to the politics of today, but I think, yeah, for us it's like really just driving home that intersection between everything else that is part of people's lives and what is going on. There's there's a book I'm reading about Caribbean history, and I swear there is a link here. I will get
Great.
to it. But it talks about how the fact that like you can't look at one island and look at its history without looking at all the islands and their history
Mhm,
and how all of it interplayed. And I very much feel like that is what's happening here is like people are trying to silo things
mhm,
and like skirt around the issue, but like we're not going to be successful unless we look at the big picture
mhm,
and all of the factors involved. So I
mhm.
think it's extremely short-sighted and very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think, like, even if you take that argument his argument as face value of, like, we should be improving people's lives right now, it's like, what better, faster way to improve the health of, like, millions of vulnerable, like, I don't know, discriminated against, disenfranchised, like, children than to stop fossil fuel pollution in their neighborhoods. Like,
Mhm.
that will save so many lives in the immediate, as well as, like, creating, a better, cleaner, healthy, safer future. So yeah, it's frustrating, to your point, and I also think, like, I think it's one thing for, like, him to be like, "My organization is really focusing on the, like, healthcare cuts from USAID and trying to make up that gap." And it's like another entirely to be like, this is the way we all should use our money. It's very, it feels frustrating.
Yeah, it does. And he is not the only one that has pivoted his stance on things. So yeah, so it very much feels like an uphill battle right now, when you have these very powerful and important people shifting away. But I don't know. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to
Yeah.
say.
I think,
But it
there,
totally is throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was, I think, I really should, look up it was Naomi Klein and another woman wrote this article in The Guardian in the spring. It was called The Rise of End Times Fascism. And it was sort of about this kind of like, the tech billionaire class really kind of like has somehow bought into this worldview in which, like, if they have a bunker, if they have like their spaceship, they're going to be fine, and it like doesn't really matter what happens to the rest of us. And I appreciated the like authors in that article being like, what is more like, what is a better way to kind of challenge that than like a large movement of people like committed to the belief that like life and a future on earth are possible. And so I think that, yeah, I don't think that you get that without climate change, and I don't think that you fight climate change without making sure people's healthcare needs are taken care of. Like, it's all related.
I mean,
But
yeah, I mean, there's studies like we
yeah,
have evidence that disenfranchised people, black and brown, Latino people, they live in areas that are extremely affected by fossil fuel pollution.
yeah,
And so yeah, it is a social and environmental justice issue. It's a health issue. Um, so like trying to pull these things apart and look at them separate, it's ridiculous.
yeah. Well, we have like 15 minutes left, so
Yeah,
we should turn to the last question on our list, which is a little bit complicated and outside of my wheelhouse. So I did do a lot of research before. um,
because I didn't.
Great. Well, so we had Kevin on from Blue Sky asked, "Is the direct air capture and sequestration industry growing at a fast enough pace to get global warming down below 1 degree of warming by 2050?" So I think the like first thing to get into this issue is like defining what direct air capture and sequestration is versus carbon removal, because I think maybe those things are getting a little conflated. But generally, when we're talking about sequestration or air capture, it's point source. So, like, if you have a power plant, and it is emitting a bunch of CO2, through a smokestack, it's like trying to capture that before it is emitted. I think that it is something that people who are working on like industries that are harder to decarbonize than like fossil fuel energy, so like concrete production, for example, um, are trying to figure out. And then the other side is carbon removal, which is trying to remove carbon dioxide that has already been emitted and is already in the air. Um, I don't like know a ton about the state of these technologies, but I think the last IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change report, was that there like is a limited role for these kinds of technologies, but sometimes they can be kind of like a band-aid over the real problem, which is like burning fossil fuels for energy, or burning oil, gas, and coal specifically. And I haven't seen really any evidence of a like super successful carbon removal technology project to this point. People are trying and continuing to try it. But I think like the question of like a fast enough pace to get global warming down below 1 degree of warming by 2050, and we're already some experts, and some by some reports, we've already passed 1.5. So that would be like to get below one would be, doing some of that carbon removal.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's possible that these technologies could get better, could get cheaper. I think they're quite expensive right now. But I think the good news is that we have the technology to transition away from burning fossil fuels to burning oil and gas for energy, and renewable energy is cheaper than ever. It's well, maybe this year things are changing a little in the U.S., but the like renewable power is growing still.
It exceeded, I think, any carbon or any fossil fuel related energy going online.
That's great.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, yeah. And also reducing demand through both like higher efficiency, electric cars are more efficient than combustion engine cars, or like a heat pump is more efficient than a gas furnace,
No matter the source of energy.
no matter the source of energy. Despite my fights in the TikTok comments. um and also just that we could all slow down a little and produce less and do less, on a sort of like societal level. So I think like there are so many solutions, and it doesn't all necessarily hinge on these technologies, which is good because yeah, I don't know, you know, I think especially I think there's probably a lot of interesting conversations happening in those harder to decarbonize industries about how do we capture this pollution before it's emitted. But I think in terms of like a gas plant or a coal plant, it's like just we just need more solar and wind and to get some of these fossil fuel power plants offline.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what don't we have like enough clothes on the planet right now to like clothe the next
Yeah,
5,
probably.
6
Yeah.
generations or something like that?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it does feel like I don't know. This is my own bias. This is my own opinion, and I'm sure there's other people that have very different opinions of that. But like, it does feel like a band aid, or taking away from the conversations about nature conservation and
Mm.
you know how much of the Amazon is still being destroyed every year, and the carbon sequestration capabilities of the Amazon is going to far exceed what we have currently in terms of capture of CO2.
Mhm.
So sometimes it feels like, I don't know, it feels a little icky.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also gets back to this sort of larger problem of we have an economic system that isn't we're
It's
not good at
unsustainable.
balancing the real costs of things. Like the cost of climate change is enormous, like financially, like insurance crisis, health crisis, like it's so expensive, but we just don't have a way to easily make that part of the calculus, or industry doesn't want it to be part of the calculus. So I think that it just skews everything.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I haven't done any reporting on carbon sequestration really, but I prefer to focus my energy on on the trees that do it naturally.
Yeah. Um, well, you got any other thoughts on this Halloween before we free everyone from our ramblings?
so much fun. We should do this every week. Um, no, I mean, I just I'm thankful that we can do this work.
Yeah,
Because I you have to recognize that so many people have lost their jobs this year, and so many people have just been in a state of absolute hell. And so to be able to continue this work is a privilege, and I'm just happy I can do it with you, and
me too.
and have some security, hopefully. Maybe not after this live, but who knows?
I
Um,
think we would behave very well. But also that reminds me that we're it's the last day of October. We're talking about heading into November when people are gonna have a harder time paying for food, have a harder time paying their energy bills. So, take care of your neighbors, cook an extra portion, take it to your upstairs neighbor, donate to your food bank, help people pay for their heat, take care of each other.
yeah, some pretty scary times right now.
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah,
thanks for hanging out with me, Pearl.
no problem. That's why I don't get invited to places, because I always just make it so negative.
No, I think that you're great at bringing the positive too. A realist.
Humor.
Ugh. Well, I hope you have a good Halloween and Spider-Man behaves himself.
Oh, I doubt very much that Spider-Man will behave himself, but hopefully I just don't lose him amongst all the other Spider-Men.
You come home with a different one.
A different Spider-Man. It's always very possible. I mean, why did he have to choose a costume that has a mask, and there's already like so many other kids that are into Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's really having a resurgence right now.
It's the Spider-Man times.
It is. He's Spidey. He's Spidey
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like, yeah, Spidey's the little one. He's not Spider
Oh,
apparently. Yeah.
cute.
Yeah. All the Avengers are these kids.
Oh, they're
There's a whole
babies?
series. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, baby Avengers.
Yeah, baby Avengers. Um, so that's what we watch.
That's what we watch.
Yeah,
Well.
very educational.
Okay. Ugh, all right. Well, I'll talk to you offline and everybody watching, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see if I can end it.
Yeah. I know, do I just press the X?
I think so.